This is how I shot a backpack commercial with natural lighting and minimal gear. So recently Brevity reached out to me asking me if I wanted to review their backpack. I thought about it and I figured I would at least want to provide some value back to my audience. Why not just shoot a spec commercial? So this video is not sponsored by Brevity. They did send out the backpack, so that's your disclaimer. In terms of pre-production, I just came up with a shot list of all the shots I really wanted. And this was all shot in Vancouver, more specifically Gastown and near Canada Place. I did do a pretty simple location scout prior to the shoot, just so I wasn't just wandering downtown the day of. In terms of music, it's from Artlist. They are not sponsoring this video. I just paid because, you know, they have good stuff. But if they do want to sponsor this video or this channel, reach out. So in terms of choosing the song, I did some research on the Brevity brand and I found that they're very like upbeat, kind of fun. Hence why I chose this song, because it kind of matches that brand's energy. So I'd say the most important part when you're shooting with very minimal gear, especially if you don't have like light modifiers or any lights, is that you always want to backlight your subject. You really want to shoot during sunrise or sunset. And generally speaking, that is when you'll have the softest light compared to, let's say, midday when the sun is directly above you, you're just gonna have very harsh light and raccoon eyes. Anyhow, let's jump into the breakdown. So this shot was done on a tripod. Essentially, I had Alex hold the bag and I manually focused onto the logo and then with my tripod, tilt up. Now, if you were to backlight this, it wouldn't make a lot of sense. The entire thing would basically be in shadow. So I actually had positioned the bag sideways. That way it was able to light up the logo just a bit more. There's lots of light parts and dark parts as well, and it just creates more depth. I originally wanted to do this on a tripod, but I found that it actually wouldn't tilt up fast enough. So I ended up just doing it handheld. Grabbed the FX3 and I just whipped it up. One other thing to keep in mind is this was also done in manual focus. Now, as you can see, when I get to the top here, the autofocus isn't like hunting, and it would look pretty amateurish if the autofocus was like now focusing on the building in the back, right? Because there's so much movement going on. I don't know if the autofocus would have actually had kept up with that kind of sudden change in angle. So the first thing I want to point out is notice how there's so much texture going on here. As you can see, there is wet spots, and then here are the tire marks of the dry part due to cars driving on top. And then there's also like this drain, as well as, you know, more water and reflections. So this is something that we just happen to be really fortunate, because the night before it was actually raining and this morning happened to be a beautiful sunrise. And so we were able to get all of this texture, which also creates more depth. And it also kind of acts like there's leading lines. Like notice how the lines all kind of point towards Alex. So it kind of frames Alex in a way. So for this shot, actually, I took inspiration from this other video that I saw. As you can see, there's lots of leading lines here that point towards Alex. Notice how he is still backlit here. So the sun is just beneath this building. Had the sun been, you know, over here, this would have been a completely different look. Understanding and prioritizing the time of day when you're shooting could really, you know, save the whole shoot. There's so much depth happening here. This was also shot on the Sony 20mm and, you know, static shot on a tripod. So in order to pull off the shot, I essentially just clamped the jaw part of the magic arm to the bottom of the bag. Normally you'd probably want to have something solid in the backpack that you can clamp onto. The other thing you'll notice is we had a bunch of static shots in the opening sequence. One thing I asked Alex to do, and it was intentional, to have Alex actually be turning. The lighting's also changing, right? So you go from a relatively flat looking image to more depth, right? And as you can see, it creates a lot more visual interest. The reason why the shot looks really good, there's a lot of depth going on here. Looking at these windows, they also kind of act as leading lines towards Alex. As you can see, the sun is still behind Alex, so he is being backlit, and it creates like this edge light, essentially. The light kind of creeps around Alex and almost give him like a warm hug. This was shot on the DJI RS3 gimbal. So for this next shot, I really love this vortex shot, if you will. That's what I'm gonna call it. This was also shot on the gimbal, and I basically just went into FPV mode, and I just started off on an angle, and as I walked around Alex, I'm also tilting the camera while kind of panning towards it. And just by doing something as simple as that really makes this shot just a lot more interesting versus had I just originally just followed Alex, like, you know, straight from behind walking across the street. So for this shot right here, this was the only one where I actually used a light modifier. The sun was beaming right at us and we were in a parkade. And so the inner side of the parkade is extremely dark in comparison to the outside. In order to, you know, have some level on the backpack, I just used like a cheap stand and a 5-in-1 reflector. And I basically just had like the white side, I believe, pointing back towards the bag, just so a little bit of the sun kind of just brings up the exposure of the bag. And I believe in post, I actually brought up the exposure just a little bit more. And if it wasn't for the 5-in-1 reflector, I don't think I would have been able to bring it up without introducing a lot of noise. Same idea with the vortex thing. I just thought, hey, like I need a shot of Alex taking off the bag. For the zipper shot, I essentially just used this, which is a magic arm by SmallRig. This magic arm was attached to the FX3, and then I just had Alex basically just hide the thing with his hand and just grab onto the zipper and just pull. The reason why this location works really well is because not only is there a lot of visual interest going on, it's kind of like a funnel. At this point, the sun was already up, but because it's coming in through this top, it's not coming in from like behind or from the side, right? Like right behind us is actually the parkade, you know, ceiling. And that's how we're able to have all this shadow, and Alex was able to be backlit still. For this shot here, notice how I have leaves in the foreground and the camera kind of pushes through it. That just adds more layer of depth. Now, did you notice something different about this shot? Notice how Alex is pulling out, an FX3. That's right, he's pulling out the camera that I'm actually using to film this video, because I actually forgot to bring the prop camera that he was supposed to be using, which is my Sony a6500. So thankfully, I had an iPhone 15 Pro. I'd say this shot is probably the giveaway shot, if anything, just because you can see Alex in here, and simply because there's just a lack of depth of field compared to the FX3, which is a full frame camera. There's still some depth here. So kudos to, you know, the iPhone 15 Pro for what it's capable of with its Apple Pro log. This is just handheld shot of Alex walking. Notice how I had Alex walk in terms of this part of the staircase rather than earlier on, because it's always more interesting to have your subject go from shadow to light compared to just, you know, being in the shadow the entire time or being in the light. This shot right here was basically just done on a tripod. It's just, you know, right to left. This shot right here was also done on the iPhone 15 Pro. However, the thing is, at this time of day, the sun had already risen up pretty high, and I actually didn't have any ND filters made for the iPhone. There's like Sandmark or Moment that make iPhone lenses with ND filters. However, I didn't really have that. So in order to get the correct setting, I basically just grabbed my ND filter for my actual camera and I just placed it like that. Same thing here. It is backlit, of course, and there's just a lot of visual interest happening here with the sun kind of flaring through the cherry blossom, and it was shot on a gimbal here as I was tracking Alex. For this spiral motion, this is basically just a slow shutter effect. I'm shooting in 24 FPS. In that case, I brought it down to 1/15, and I basically just spun that shit. So for this crash zoom in, I basically just had the camera on the tripod and I manually focused to the cherry blossom. I just punched in with my 24-70 and, you know, pan to the left real quickly. All done in camera. So for this shot right here, the reason why this looks really nice is because notice how the sun and the shadows that is created through the cherry blossom kind of just adds a lot of movement to the scene. For this shot right here, we're back in the parkade, and basically this is just handheld with the FX3. And for this shot, it was done on a gimbal. Notice how he's going from dark to light, versus had he had just been in the light or been in the dark, then it's kind of like, you know, it's very static in terms of lighting. So for this final shot, I actually came up with it on location. While we were in the parkade, I noticed this blue wall and I was like, this looks really nice. And I could totally see like the Brevity logo popping up on here. So I was like, okay, well, how would I make that work? I wouldn't want to just show the wall. And I thought, okay, well, what if I just had Alex pull the bag out? That's exactly what I had Alex do. And yeah, it kind of just works. Originally, I actually had planned a shot where I actually set the camera bag down and the logo appears right beside it. But I eventually decided to go with this just because it just looked way cooler. Well, that pretty much wraps up this video. Hopefully you found this video helpful. Let me know down below if you want to see more breakdown videos in the future on how I shoot these spec ads, because there will definitely be more going forward. Leave a like, subscribe, do whatever all YouTubers tell you to do, please. Thank you. Yeah, that's it. Bye-bye.